Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. It's Tuesday, 26th of September, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. I'm Frederico Velloso.
And I'm Mayk Oliveira. We are here once again to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe.
The Philippines will not back down on floating barrier dispute. In the recent developments, Filipino authorities removed the said barrier allegedly placed by the Chinese Coast Guard in the disputed shoal of Bajo de Masinloc.
A fuel depot blast rocked Nagorno-Karabakh, killing 20 people and injuring hundreds.
Brazil's President Lula da Silva will undergo hip surgery this week.
U.S. President Joe Biden left disappointed after the Prime Minister of Solomon Islands skipped the Pacific Island Summit in Washington.
And let's find out some of the highlights of the 19th Asian Games in Hangzhou City.
These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. And for our first news, a former official from the National Security Council explains the purpose of confidential and intelligence funds. MJ Mondahar has the details.
Ang confidential funds are used by civilian agencies. Ang intelligence fund are used by security agencies, especially the armed forces and the police.
This is how former National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon explained the difference between confidential and intelligence funds. This issue arose after the Office of the President allocated 125 billion pesos to the Office of the Vice President in confidential funds, taken from the President's contingent budget. According to Esperon, confidential funds serve various purposes.
One is on counterintelligence, which is the protection of personnel, documents, and communications. Mayroon namang operational, aside from the personal, from the counterintelligence. Operational is the use of human intelligence, technical intelligence, and other ways of collecting information.
Esperon, a former Armed Forces Chief of Staff, emphasized the importance of confidential funds in ensuring the loyalty of individuals to the government. It's crucial to ensure that they are not spies or enemies of the state.
All agencies must be recruiting people that are fit for the job. Na ang loyalty nila is to the people, and their objective is to serve the people or the agency itself.
Regarding to VP Sara Duterte, Esperon stated that confidential funds are particularly vital in her role as Education Secretary. He argued that these funds should not be questioned by leftist lawmakers in Congress.
Kailangan yung mga teachers mo ay ang loyalty sa Department of Education and ang dedication nila towards the enhancement of learning capabilities and improvement of the youth. Hindi yung mga teachers pala sila namumuno para mag-recruit ng mga tao para ma-radicalize.
Leftist partidist organizations, previously identified by former President Rodrigo Duterte as fronts of the CPP, NP, NDF, persistently inquire about confidential and intelligence funds during the 2024 budget hearings for all government agencies. This raises Esperon's question of why they seem afraid of government agencies having confidential funds.
They are not representatives of the people, but they are representatives of the combined CPP, NPA, NDF. Nandiyan sila. So bawat galaw or effort na makakapuksa sa kanila ay lalabanan nila.
The veteran official has also a reminder for lawmakers, especially those swayed by leftist influences, to disclose details of intelligence and confidential funds to the public. Because if that happens, he believes that adversaries will learn about all the government's plans.
They are against the anti-terrorism law. They are against NPF-LCAP. They are against personal security. They are against document security. They are against intelligence. Pero sila mismo, ano bang ginagawa nila? Sila nga kumikit-kit sa mga dokumento. Lahat ng dokumento dyan sa Congress dapat may classified documents din. Yung intelligence budgets, dapat hindi nila alam yan. Dapat may select committee para hindi yung lahat-lahat nakakaalam. Otherwise, yung kalaban natin, which is not only the CPP, NDF, ay alam. Malalaman din yung ating efforts ng ibang organizations or even countries na hindi katugma ng ating national interest.
This coming Wednesday, Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte will lead her agencies in pacing its 2024 budget proceedings here at the House of Representatives. For Bajo de Philippines, I'm Jay Mondehar, SMNI News.
The Office of the Vice President once again asserted that there was nothing wrong with their transfer of contingent funds to the Office of the Vice President in 2022. The reiteration by the OP occurred during the budget deliberations in Congress on Tuesday. Jade Calabroso reports.
It seems like a broken record as lawmakers from the left-leaning group once again questioned the transfer of 125 million pesos in contingent funds from the President's office to the Vice President's office. This is despite previous statements and explanations from the OP and OVP that this move was in accordance with the law and the Supreme Court's decision. The issue was brought up again during the budget deliberations for the 2024 proposed budget in Congress on Tuesday. ACT Teachers Representative Franz Castro remains relentless in asserting that the fund transfer from OP to OVP goes against the Constitution. Although this has already been refuted, the budget sponsor, ACT-CIS Representative Erwin Tulfo,
ay malinaw na nakasaad na ito pong pondo o itong 125 na ibinigay po sa OBP was not an augmentation or transfer of funds from the Office of the President. Rather, it was a release of funds chargeable against the contingent fund upon a finding that the OVP's request qualified for funding thereunder.
Tulfo further explained that the OVP has requested this fund from the DBM, and President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself knew that it would be used by the Office of the Vice President for confidential purposes.
Ito po ay ni-request po ng OVP itong confidential fund sa DBM. Ang DBM po, in-evaluate po ito, ang request, at ni-recommend po sa Office of the President, chargeable nga po sa contingent fund sa ilalim po ng 2022 General Appropriations Act. Ang OP naman po ay inaprubahan ang release ng 125 million, bagamat ang request po ay 250, chargeable nga po sa contingent fund sa ilalim ng 2022 General Appropriations Act. Ang ginawa po ng DBM ay nag-release po ng 125 million mula po sa contingent fund. At ito po ay natanggap ng Office of the Vice President, itong 125 million charged nga po sa contingent fund.
House Deputy Majority Leader Erwin Tulfo emphasized that this transfer was not a budget augmentation for the OVP in 2022 and was not illegal.
Mr. Speaker, ulitin ko po, wala pong augmentation at hindi po nanggaling ang pondo mula sa Office of the President. Ito po ay nanggaling po sa Department of Budget and Management.
Kung hindi po ito augmentation, ano po ito? Ano pong tawag natin dito?
Ito po ay appropriations from the contingent fund.
Vice President Sara Duterte had previously stated that the OVP's confidential fund supports its programs, including tree planting, free bus rides, livelihood projects, and disaster assistance. Meantime, the period of sponsorship and debates for the 2024 proposed budget of the Office of the President, amounting to 10.7 billion pesos, has terminated. Reporting from the House of Representatives, for God and the beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNI News.
In the latest diplomatic spot between Poland and Ukraine, Poland's Prime Minister criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for his words during the joint press conference with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The details with Jane Codnita.
Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for his remarks during his press conference with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau last week. At that time, Zelensky suggested that the weakening assistance to Ukraine will strengthen Russia. When asked about the dispute with Poland after Morawiecki announced that it will no longer transfer any weapons to Ukraine because it is now arming itself with the most modern weapons, Zelensky answered in quotes, "You help either Ukraine or Russia. There will be no mediators in this war. By weakening assistance to Ukraine, you will strengthen Russia, and a powerful Russia and what to expect from it. I think history in books and witnesses has long since answered this question." To this, Morawiecki answered in quotes, "The words I am directing to President Zelensky, who has recently made quite unnecessary gestures and completely inappropriate words, have come from his mouth. Mr. President, do not dare to insult the Poles. Poles are a proud nation. They know when to help their neighbors, and we are helping our neighbors against this bestial Russian onslaught. But we will always defend our interests and our good name." Morawiecki made the remarks during a meeting with Polish residents amid campaign for parliamentary elections in Krasnik town. Poland is one of the main weapons suppliers of Kyiv. However, ties have soured over the recent weeks amid the growing dispute over grain. Warsaw's recent decision to stop arming Kyiv comes amid a grain dispute. It comes after Zelensky accused Warsaw of playing into the hands of Russia by banning Kyiv's grain imports because the cheap price of Ukrainian grain is affecting Poland's agricultural sector and hurting the farmers. However, the dispute began when the EU decided not to extend restrictions on Ukrainian grain imports. Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia responded with unilateral bans, prompting Ukraine to file complaints to the World Trade Organization. Reporting, this has been Jane Conita, SMNI News.
China, Japan, and South Korea will soon hold a trilateral summit at the earliest convenient time. Ria Saito reports.
The South Korean foreign minister said the trilateral summit between their country, China, and Japan will likely signal a restart of diplomacy among East Asian countries. High-ranking diplomats from South Korea, China, and Japan reached an agreement to work toward holding the said trilateral summit at the earliest convenient time. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said his country is maintaining contact with South Korea and Japan regarding holding high-level meetings of trilateral cooperation. Amid tensions in the region, China is maintaining contact with both South Korea and Japan regarding trilateral cooperation. Wang made the remarks in a recent press briefing, saying that China values cooperation with Japan and South Korea.
中日韩是近邻，也是重要的合作伙伴，加强三国合作，符合三方的共同利益。中方重视中日韩合作，积极支持韩国担任三国合作的主席国。据我了解呢，三方正就举行三国合作系列的高级别会议保持接触。
The three countries held their leaders' meeting in Chengdu City, China in 2019. 以上、日本から最後のニュースをお伝えしました。SMNI News, Japan.
Russia is calling again for another probe in the explosions of the Nord Stream pipelines. David Lira tells us more live. David?
Mayk, to recall, Pulitzer Prize winner Seymour Hershey revealed that U.S. partnered with Norway in a top-secret operation in June 2022 to plan remotely trigger explosives that took 3 out of 4 Nord Stream pipelines 3 months later. Russian ambassador to Germany, Sergei Nechayev, recently said that countries concerned in investigating the incident have not produced any concrete results. He said that Russia will continue to call for an open and transparent investigation into the incident, which has caused serious losses to both Russia and Germany, so as to make sure that the truth is made public. The Nord Stream pipelines were built to transmit natural gas from Russia to the European markets through Germany. In late 2022, a series of deep-sea explosions rocked the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines along the bottom of the Baltic Sea in waters off Denmark and Sweden. The bombing served 3 of the 4 underwater pipelines of the Nord Stream project. This shocking incident was widely believed as a sabotage to the pipelines. Various countries, including Germany, Sweden, and Denmark, have conducted their own investigations into the incident, but they haven't released any concrete results yet. Russia, on the other hand, has repeatedly called for a joint investigation, but was rejected by the countries concerned. Russia has again called for an open and transparent investigation into the explosions of the Nord Stream pipelines, a shocking event that happened on September 26, 2022. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you. That's David Lira live on SMNI Studios.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva will undergo hip surgery this week and will have to work from home for weeks. The details with Natalia Prado live. Natalia?
Fred, that's right. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will undergo hip surgery this Friday, and he'll have to work from the presidential residence for about 3 weeks.
Brazilian officials said that Lula's doctors will replace the top of his right femur with an implant to treat his arthrosis. A spokesperson for the Brazilian presidency said that Lula, 77 years old, will not be able to travel for up to 6 weeks after his surgery. Lula has felt hip pain since August last year. He was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in his hip ahead of the 2022 presidential election, but he put off his surgery until after the polls. The Brazilian president felt that his hip pains were worsening, and after a meeting with the Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, Lula told reporters that he had been in pain since last August and it hurts when he does certain movements. Lula first announced that he would have to undergo surgery in July, and he would have to schedule it to avoid a missing series of major global events like the BRICS Summit in South Africa, the G20 Summit in India, and the UN General Assembly in New York.
Fred, Lula will have his surgery at the hospital located in the capital city of Brasilia, and he's expected to remain there until next Tuesday. Back to you, Fred.
Thank you. That's Natalia Prado live on SMNI Studios.
Meanwhile, the Philippine authorities have removed the floating barrier allegedly installed by the Chinese Coast Guard at the disputed waters of Bajo de Masinloc. Daniela Paulite reports.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, lauded the Philippine authorities for removing the floating barrier allegedly installed there by the Chinese Coast Guard in the southern part of Bajo de Masinloc, or Scarborough Shoal. In an interview with SMNI News, BFAR spokesperson Nazario Briguera hailed the move as a sign that the Philippines will not back down to foreign countries. Briguera said that this is the first time that a floating barrier was installed at the Scarborough Shoal as a way to prevent Filipino fisherfolks from fishing in the said area.
Yung unang pagkakataon na parang nagbigay sila ng isang barrier, no, na tuloy-tuloy at hindi ako nagkakamali, mga nasa about 300 meters yung inilatag nila doon sa shoal, na deliberately ang kanilang purpose ay maharangan talaga yung ating mga mangingisda. So ito yung unang pagkakataon na may ganun silang ginawa, at the good thing is, yun nga sinabi ko, hindi naman tayo nagpatinag, may bagong ulat na ito'y tinanggal na ng Philippine Coast Guard, alinsunod na rin sa utos ng National Task Force in the West Philippines.
The BFAR spokesperson added that Scarborough Shoal, or Panatag Shoal, is considered as a traditional fishing ground. That is why many fisherfolks travel to that area.
Ang Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources ay patuloy na sumasali po sa joint operations para po mag-establish tayo ng presensya doon sa lugar, sa kabila ng mga hamon na talagang nakikita natin dahilan sa mga ginagawa nitong mga irresponsableng dayuhan sa loob ng ating teritoryo.
BFAR also assured that they will continue to help Filipino fisherfolks.
Well, ang konteksto kasi nung naging pahayag ng Pangulo ay yung konteksto ng fisheries conservation, and we welcome that. Tama po ang Pangulo, in fact natuwa kami na may emphasis siya sa pagbibigay ng proteksyon sa ating marine habitats. At nilinaw niya lamang kasi may mga ibang grupo na nagkaroon ng apprehension doon sa termo na fisherman. Pero in fact, yung mga ganitong conservation measure ay matagal na po din natin ginagawa. As you know, nagpapatupad po tayo ng close fishing season sa mga major fishing grounds natin, sa Zamboanga, sa Palawan, and sa Visayan Sea. At yung tungkol naman sa pagkakaroon ng mga lugar kung saan bawal mangisda, ito po'y ginagawa na rin ng ating mga lokal na pamahalaan sa bisa ng isang ordinansa.
In the end, Briguera said that the Philippines is scheduled to import fish in the latter part of the year to ensure sufficient supply in the market following a fishing ban set to be implemented in the northeastern part of Palawan. For God and my beloved country, this has been Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, an explosion at a fuel depot in Nagorno-Karabakh has claimed the lives of 20 people and injured hundreds more. Andrea Sanos has the details.
A huge explosion rocked a fuel storage depot near a highway in the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh. The explosion occurred near the main city of Kankedi, also known as Stepanakert by Armenians. It's still not yet clear what caused the explosion. According to Armenian authorities, nearly 300 people were admitted to hospitals. Dozens of them are currently in critical condition. The explosion comes following what Azerbaijan called as a counter-terrorism measure of a local nature in Nagorno-Karabakh last Tuesday, citing an alleged military buildup of Armenians. Nagorno-Karabakh is a disputed region in Azerbaijan and home to some 120,000 ethnic Armenians. The Armenian government said some 13,350 refugees had crossed into Armenia from the enclave. A day after Azerbaijan launched their operation, authorities in Nagorno-Karabakh announced a ceasefire with Azerbaijan following a proposal by Russian peacekeepers. Reuters reports citing leaders of the self-proclaimed Nagorno-Karabakh Republic said that some 120,000 Karabakh Armenians could flee from their homes due to ethnic cleansing fears. Azerbaijani officials, on the other hand, promised to guarantee the rights of ethnic Armenians during the reintegration of Nagorno-Karabakh. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
Chief prosecutor ordered the arrest of 8 officials as investigation continues over the collapse of 2 dams that left thousands dead and displaced. Gratero Omori reports.
The investigation continues as to the cause of a deadly dam collapse that killed thousands of people in Libya. The disaster had occurred more than 2 weeks ago, but its devastating aftermath remains a reminder of the tragic catastrophe that surprised the North African country.
The public prosecutor's office in Libya questioned 7 former officials and current members of the Water Resources Authority and the Dams Management Authority as part of an inquiry into the recent floods that killed thousands. Among those questioned was the former mayor of Derna, who was removed from his role after the disaster. Derna is a port city in eastern Libya hit the hardest by the deadly floods caused by Mediterranean storm Daniel. The officials were questioned amid allegations that mismanagement, negligence, and mistakes contributed to the disaster. The deadly storm struck eastern Libya on September 10, which led to massive destruction of infrastructure and a significant loss of life. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 4,000 people died in the floods, while more than 9,000 others are still missing.
The said officials will be jailed pending the results of the investigation. Meanwhile, Libya continues to receive urgent aid from other countries, including the UAE. Reporting from Dubai, this has been Gratero Omori, SMNI News, United Arab Emirates.
U.S. President Joe Biden expressed his disappointment after the Prime Minister of Solomon Islands did not attend the Pacific Islands Summit taking place in Washington this week. Sheena Salem has the details.
Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavari skipped the meeting of Pacific leaders at the White House a few days after he praised China as a development partner. The second U.S. Pacific Islands Forum Summit is currently taking place in Washington from September 25 to 26, 2023. The forum consists of 18 Pacific members plus the United States. However, representatives from the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu skipped the event this year. Sogavari's absence came after he praised China for its efforts in speeding up the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
We acknowledge the value South-South cooperation because it is less restrictive, more responsive, and is aligned to our national needs. We applaud the People's Republic of China for the initiative in accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda through their Belt and Road Initiative, Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative.
South-South cooperation refers to a partnership among countries in the Global South. This includes regions of Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Oceania, such as Brazil, India, Indonesia, China, Philippines, Nigeria, and Mexico, to name a few.
Meanwhile, Biden pledged to provide $200 million more in economic aid to Pacific Islands. The U.S. leader made the offer as Washington aims to boost ties and race for influence with China in the region. Reporting from Melbourne, this is Sheena Salim, SMNI News, Australia.
The Prime Minister of Canada warns of Russian disinformation against Ukraine after the Canadian Parliament Speaker invited a Ukrainian Nazi veteran and gave 2 standing ovations. Carla de la Peña has the details.
After the outrage and apologies for inviting and honoring a Ukrainian Nazi veteran who fought for Hitler, and now Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is warning Russia to not use the incident for disinformation purposes against Ukraine.
Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. It's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine, as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
Trudeau is referring to the incident when a 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka, a Ukrainian Nazi veteran, was honored by the Canadian Parliament. Hunka was a former member of the SS 1st Galician Division, a World War II Nazi German military formation who fought for Adolf Hitler. The 1st Galician Division was formed in 1943 by the Nazis. It comprises of 80,000 volunteers, mainly Ukrainians from Galicia region. And recently, Hunka received a standing ovation during a visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. After receiving massive outrage, especially from the Jewish community, Rota apologized to the public.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian-Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Subsequently become aware of more information which causes me to regret my decision to recognize this individual. I wish to apologize to the House, and I'm deeply sorry that I've offended many with my gestures and remarks. I would also like to add that this initiative was entirely my own. The individual in question being from my riding and having been brought to my attention. No one, including you, my fellow parliamentarians, or the Ukraine delegation, was privy to my remarks prior to their delivery.
Despite the apology of Rota, Canadian opposition leader Pierre Poilievre criticized Trudeau over the incident.
And letting him come anyway.
To recall, Witold Gielski, Poland's ambassador to Canada, expressed anger over the incident and had demanded an apology for what he saw as the Canadian Parliament whitewashing such villains. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the incident was outrageous, accusing Canada and other Western countries of raising a young generation that does not know what happened during World War II and the threat of fascism. Meanwhile, Belarus said they expected an official apology from Canadian officials over the incident. In a statement, the Belarusian Foreign Ministry said, quote, Belarus, where 1 in 3 people was killed in World War II, is outraged and deeply insulted by the photos of members of the Canadian House of Commons honoring a Nazi veteran. We demand that international and public organizations, as well as associations and foundations created in memory of World War II victims, give a proper legal and moral assessment to this incident. We expect official apologies from the Canadian leadership. End of quote. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
The Iranian armed forces displayed hundreds of weapons and equipment in a military parade held on the occasion of a Sacred Defense Week. Melchizedek Cadiz has the details.
Assalamualaikum. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi conveyed his country's willingness to safeguard regional security by working with neighboring nations in the region. In a speech delivered during a recent military parade staged by the armed forces, Raisi said that Iran achieved development in its defense industry, technology, and other fields despite years of pressure caused by the unilateral sanctions imposed by the United States. The Iranian president warned that interference by foreign military forces is the biggest factor causing regional insecurity and instability. The parade became an avenue for the Iranian military to display hundreds of developed weapons and equipment such as drones, missiles, radar sets, and armored vehicles. The armed forces launched the military parade on the occasion of Sacred Defense Week, which marks the anniversary of Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani slammed Washington for its continuous sanctions against Iran, which he said demonstrates the hypocrisy and double standards of the U.S. government. Kanani also assured that Iran will adhere to diplomacy and negotiations amid ongoing talks to revive the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as Iran Nuclear Deal, signed in 2015 and abandoned in 2018. Talks to revive Iran's nuclear program started in April 2021 in Vienna, Austria, but no breakthrough has been achieved yet since the last round of talks happened in August 2022. Barakallahu fikum jami'an, kan handa Melchizedek Cadiz sa Akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
The Prime Minister of Thailand sought the help of retired senior government officials to investigate a scandal making national headlines concerning several police officials who are allegedly involved in online gambling. Anissa de Guzma has the details.
Retired officials came to the rescue in helping the government probe at least 8 police officers with suspected involvement in an online gambling business. On Monday, Thai police raided the residence of one of the country's 4 deputy national police chiefs identified as Police General Surachate Hakpan, who is a contender to become the next chief of Thailand's national police. The raid took place following an ongoing investigation concerning a major network of illegal online gambling operations in which several police officers are allegedly involved. According to the Prime Minister's office, the scandal has attracted widespread public interest and has seriously affected public confidence in the country's justice system. The scandal took place a few days after the new Prime Minister ordered to regulate and end the recreational use of cannabis in 6 months. Di siya Anissa de Guzman, Rangan Chakuntep Mahanakon, SMNI News, Pratetay, Sawadika.
For sports news, time to recap some of the highlights of the 19th Asian Games, starting with the Philippines' Gilas men's team securing a victory in its match against Bahrain. Joris Bonifacio tell us more.
Gilas Pilipinas secures first victory in its match against Bahrain at the 19th Asian Games in Hangzhou, China. The Philippines team blew out Bahrain with a score of 89-61 in the preliminary round of Group C. Before the game ended, Gilas came up to over 30 points, ensuring their first win. Angelo Kwame and CJ Perez both scored 15 points, while Justin Brownlee had 14 points and 9 rebounds. Gilas Pilipinas is set to face Team Thailand on September 28. Meanwhile, the Philippines gained its second bronze medal through the national wushu team. Jones Inso won 3rd place in the men's Taijikwan Taijijian all-around event. Inso recorded a total score of 19.486, slightly finishing gold medalist Haonan Gao of China with 19.666 points, and silver medalist Takian Samway Hui with 19.493 finish. The Philippines have 2 bronze medals so far. Meanwhile, Chinese wushu athlete Li Yi made history by becoming the first woman in Chinese to win gold at the Asian Games. The 31-year-old considered her win as the perfect end to her 20-year career of being an athlete. Lee, with a total score of 9.786, beat Hong Kong athlete Liu Shushu with a 0.30 points lead. Host country China, meanwhile, continues to lead the games, bagging 39 gold medals so far. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Doris Bonifacio, SMNI News.
And for our last news, the Hangzhou Asian Games has released the official souvenirs featuring the Man Torch Tower that was unveiled in Beijing recently. Vigan has the details.
The lighting ceremony of the Main Torch Tower for the 19th Asian Games in the host city, Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province, China, left the world amazed on Saturday night. At the ceremony, torchbearers in the virtual and physical worlds jointly lit up the cauldron. The fuel used in the primary cauldron tower was carbon zero methanol. This is the first time that methanol fuel has been used in the history of the Asian Games. The torch tower is composed of 19 uniquely shaped pillars, forming a wave-like appearance, echoing its name Jianjiang Tidal Surge, which is also a famous tourist attraction of Zhejiang, the world's largest tidal bore of Jiantang River. 4 items featuring the tower's design include miniature decorative sculptures and commemorative coins, with each coming with limited edition numbers.
这个主火炬塔的特许商品一共是4款，其中呢有2个摆件，从现在开始是一直销售到今年的年底。
Consumers can buy these products at the online official flagship stores and the licensed retail stores of the games in Hangzhou. Reporting for Newsline World, Vigan, SMNI News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. True freedom is to do the Father's will.
For our Christmas countdown, it's 89 days to go before Christmas. And that's all for tonight's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit on SMNInewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and Country, I'm Mayk Oliveira.
For God and Country, I'm Frederico Velloso. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program.
May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.